Greetings, and good afternoon, Juneteenth family. Happy Thursday. Welcome to our first Lunch and Learn for the month of March. Today, we are welcoming Lishawn Alexander, Chief Executive Officer, CEO of Lishawn's Consulting, and also Lishawn's Cupcakes. Lishawn Alexander is dedicated to building and enhancing the community's capacity to create positive, lasting social change in government and beyond. Lishawn has a deep commitment to providing much needed support to local nonprofits to achieve better governance, financial management, and legal compliance to improve the overall strength and sustainability of the entire community. She has worked with thousands of leaders and organizations throughout New York City, helping them to achieve higher accountability and oversight to better serve the needs of the city's most vulnerable population. As a New York City Port Authority in New York, New Jersey MWBE vendor, Ms. Alexander is a small business vendor with a big vision. She incorporated her business, Lishawn's Cupcakes LLC, established in 2012 and its DBA, Lishawn's Consulting, in 2019. Lishawn has extensive experience working with executives, government, policymakers, task force, students, youths, and teams throughout her career and is an expert in helping nonprofits reach new levels of performance. She has in-depth, hands-on experience in housing, media, legislation, contracting, and compliance. For additional biographical information, you can visit her at her website. She's worked with a variety of organizations, and some amazing organizations. I'll let her share some of those a little later, or at the end, we'll do some question asking and I'll mention those. But again, she's CEO of 2 companies. She's also part of the Medgar Evers College adjunct faculty since spring 2017, teaching students in the public administration department how to effectively advocate for effective social change and be part of decision-making community. That's huge. Most recently, working with the department chair, Dr. Zulima Blair, to support interns with additional professional development support, career planning, and coaching. Lishawn is here today to talk to us and share with us the art of influence. And I'm going to welcome her to the stage to do just that. Welcome, Lishawn.
Hi, Jamie.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm really, really well. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to what you have to present. I am going to step off the stage and allow you to do just that. Thank you for bringing us the art of influence.
Yeah, so happy to be here. I mean, this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. It's a topic that, I share with my students all the time, because in order for you to really reach your highest potential and goals, you have to be really someone in a leadership and influential position. So I'm going to share some really good tips and get you guys going. Okay, can we go back to the agenda? Yeah, so again, my name is Lishawn Alexander. I'm the CEO of Lishawn's Consulting and Lishawn's Cupcakes. We've been around for a very long time. My previous life, I worked at the mayor's office. So, a lot of the nonprofit governance management expertise developed there, leaving the mayor's office as the nonprofit guru. Just want to share with you today the art of influence, right? There is an art that happens with being an influential individual. So today's agenda, I'm going to give you an overview of what it means to influence individuals. Building influence takes good leadership. We're going to talk about what are the qualities of a great leader, because, no one follows someone just to follow them, right? You have to have certain qualities that people see and they want to emulate. How to start your influence journey, how to use your creativity, which I've used a lot, and you can see that in my baking, right? How to get individuals to buy in or interest in, what you're selling and what you're doing and what services you're offering. Networking, relationship building, and then we're going to wrap up with, some final thoughts. Can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so just an overview. Now, influencing others does not happen overnight, right? It takes work, it takes passion, dedication, and leadership. Now, my question to you is, do you have what it takes? And the truth of the matter is that, becoming influential is something that you can learn, right? You can learn to be influential, but it's going to take a lot of work. You may need a coach, right? You may need someone who, you may need a mentor, right? You're going to need to do certain marketing things, right? Which will help you build an audience, but it's always good to start home, right? So start with the people that you know and you interact with, and they can start your, influential journey. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now, building influence takes good leadership. Ask yourself, how do I become a good leader? Right? That's the important question. How, right? It's easy to do if you know how. And there are lots of books on, becoming a good leader. There's so many great writers that talked, through their journey of becoming a good leader. Um, but, a lot of the times it's really about being you, right? There's only one of you. And in order for you to be a good leader, you have to be you, right? So you don't want to emulate anyone in your leadership skills, right? You want to be you because people are going to want to follow you, right? They're not going to want to follow you following someone else, right? Let's go to the next slide. What are the qualities of a great leader? All right. Resilience, right? During COVID, that was one of the determining factors, right, for organizations. Were you resilient through COVID? Were you able to pivot? Were you able to um, perform your services, right, in spite of, right? Were you able to perform, your um, sell your products, right, during COVID, right? Were you able to, become vigilant, right? Virtual. Did you develop a marketing plan? Did you have different strategies, a digital strategy that you use to connect with your clients, your customers, and the users of your programs, right? You have to be driven, right? Driven people don't sleep. Driven people are always up, ready, energetic, right? And so those are things that you have to have when you want to be a good leader, in order to influence people. You want to be a good problem solver, right? There's so many problems in the world, right? And great leaders don't shy away from problems, right? Great leaders don't um, hide from problems, right? They embrace them, right? They come up with solutions, right? They come up with alternatives, right? So a great leader is not going to be upset by the overbearing of a certain burden that everyone has, right? They're going to say, how can we solve it? And how can we effectively onboard people that we need to support it, right? They must be self motivated, right? You can't rely on having cheerleaders in the back of you getting you ready, right? So we know that, for example, on a football field, you have the cheerleaders there. But prior to the cheerleaders there, the athletes themselves have to be self-motivated, right? Because while they're in practice, while they're practicing, there's no cheerleaders there to push them forward, right? They have to be able to, go through that on their own, right? And be motivated to go that extra hour, that extra mile, right? And it's something that you have to do if you really want to be an influential person. You have to have passion, right? People love people with energy, right? If you don't have a lot of energy, people are not inclined to follow you, right? You also have to have empathy and sympathy for people, right? Because during COVID, that was one of the main things, right? If your supervisor were empathetic that you had children in your new workspace, which is in your house, they would understand that that there are certain things that you're unable to do at certain times of the day, right? Because your children are kind of interacting in the same space and they have to be willing to work with you, right? And so great leaders during COVID allowed their teams to um, have self time, right? To have times where they can breathe, right? Before they started another assignment, right? They would have, different programs or times where, the team members can communicate um, outside of the work environment, for example, right? Um, a great leader also is a team player, right? So there's no I in team. Even if you're the CEO of the company, you have to be able to be on the ground, right? One of the first lessons that I learned in terms of being a CEO is that you do the jobs that no one else wants to do, right? So if you can do it, then your team can do it. But if you're not willing to pick up the trash, then your team is not going to be willing to support you in picking up the trash, right? So you have to be able to um, do every part of your job, right? And then the last thing is to be inspiration, right? You have to be inspirational. People want to follow people who have a great story, right? They've, you know, done great things. And over time, you can see, where they came from and where they are now. That's very inspirational for people. So those are people that you will follow, right? Let's go on to the next slide. Now, it's never too late to start influencing others, right? So even if you are at 60, right? I know a lot of people start businesses at 50, at 60, right? Because they finished their past career and now they're starting a new career, right? You can build your influence, right? You can build your credibility in whatever space it is that you would like to work in, right? Influencing others, is good in an area that you're passionate about, right? So I like to also tell people along the journey that, if you are um not really good at something, but you're passionate about it, you may want to reconsider, right? Because part of the passion has to come with, the skill set, right? So, in my first uh, years of being owning my cupcake catering company, I wasn't really a baker, right? But I had a team that did the baking, right? But eventually, as an entrepreneur, when you say yes to having a service done and your staff isn't able to do it, then, you have to get into that place and be able to do it and do it with a great skill, right? Thankfully for me, my mom was always a great catering baker, right? So was able to tap into her talents and make my business happen, right? But yeah, you want to be passionate, you want to be gifted at what you're doing. Let's go on to the next slide. Now, how to start your journey. Being a creative is very important in starting your journey. It's through your creativity that you find opportunity, right? Because in a space where there's so many things happening, and finding innovative ways of doing things is how, most businesses are successful and succeed, right? Bill Gates with the computer, he was being creative, right? um, Elon Mars, he was being creative, right? So a lot of great um, wealthy individuals who were influential really start by being creative and thinking outside the box, right? Out of the box thinkers, um, you know, start new companies all the time, right? So with COVID, a lot of out of the box thinkers started making masks, right? They got their sewing machines, whatever they were sewing before, maybe they put that in the back, and they started with masks, right? Because they were thinking outside of the box. They were thinking how to remain present, right? And some companies started, with masks, right? So they weren't a company until COVID happened, and then they realized, I have a sewing machine, I can use it, and let me start a business, right? So are you utilizing social media? That's part of your influential journey, right? The use of social media today is one of the most important marketing tools for any company, right? You have to be able to meet your audience where they are. And with COVID, the only way to meet your audience where they are was through social media, right? Through online, right? We didn't have the in-person interactions that we did. And so for companies now, building your social media audience is really critical and important. All right, let's go on to the next slide. How to use your creativity. Now, people are most interested in new and innovative tools and techniques that will make their lives easier and more exciting, which is why I have this example here with the ring, right? You want to be creative about different tools, right? That's why we have things such as Calendly, right? Because your overwhelming schedule needs to be organized, right? And you want to be able to have people be added to your calendar without having 8 or 9 emails back and forth, right? So you have these programs of Calendly. You'll have a website where you can keep in mind um, the different um, ideas, right? So Slack being a program that allows you to interact with your team online, right? So you want to be able to be a creative thinker, right? Let's go on to the next slide. Now, how do you get individuals to buy in or be interested in you and your product, right? What gets people excited? Your passion, right? About the cause should incite passion in others, right? So it's like an energy thing, right? If you're passionate, the people around you are going to be passionate, right? Your ability to relate to others, right, will also get them excited, right? No one wants their leader to be up there and everyone else down, there, right? They want to be able to relate with the people that they're interacting with, right? So great influencers, they are just like you and I, right? So they always share that with the people around them, right? And so people want to follow you because they have similar experiences that you do, right? They have to go to the grocery store like you do. They have to go to different to the gym like you do. They have to go to church like you do. They have to exercise like you do. They want to know that you are relatable, right? Your product, your service is relatable, right? You want to be part of, your community. That when they see you, they see themselves, right? And that's important. That's how you get the buy-in of people, right? People don't buy into snooty people, right? If you're snooty, if you're standoffish, you're not going to build a, influential platform, and no one's going to want to really follow you. All right, so that's important. Can we go on to the next slide? Networking. Whoa, right? Work your connections and let your connections work for you. That's so important. To be influential, you can't be someone who doesn't want to talk and engage people, right? You want to be able to talk. You want to be able to have conversations with individuals, right? That's part of you building an audience, right? You know, and you're only as good as your next connection, right? So if you've connected with someone else, you'll be able to connect with their friends who are their friends who are their friends, right? And that's how networking works, right? That's why a lot of companies started off with this pyramid model, right? Where you would, sell this particular part of a company to your friends, who will sell it to their friends, who will sell it to their friends, and you kind of go up the pyramid as network. But you don't have to be in a pyramid to network, right? You can be in your own business and network, right? You can be at any company or organization that you are at and network, right? You don't have to be an entrepreneur to be an influencer. You can be an influencer in your space and wherever you're working, right? If you're in government, you could be an influencer there, right? If you're in the private sector, you could be an influencer there. Usually we see celebrities as influencers, right? But individuals can be influencers too, right? And as I said earlier, it's never too late to be an influencer. You could start right now, right after this session. Okay. Let's continue. Next slide, please. Relationship building. So, being an influencer, as I said before, takes work, and it is about building relationships. It's about building the right relationships and building good relationships, right? So, we all have like friends that, are, they bring out the worst in us, right? Now, if those are the people that we're attracting, do you think that we're going to be building great relationships? No, because those people are going to um, allow us to attract the same type of people, right? So people who are kind of negative, right? So it's always good to have relationships with positive individuals, people that are going in the same direction as you, right? You don't want to build relationships with individuals who are not going in the same direction, because ultimately that relationship will not last, right? Because you're going in opposite directions. So it's always good to build relationships. Every relationship you build, it takes cultivation, right? So build a relationship doesn't happen overnight, right? You have to meet the individual. You have to be able to have conversations with them, and then you invite them to your space, right? And it takes work, right? It's not just a phone call, right? A phone call doesn't build a relationship. It's time. It's supporting each other on different projects, right? Over the years, that will help you build long-lasting relationships and relationships that will matter. So, for example, if you are looking for a job, you know that will be you will reach out to your friends, your family, those who you've built relationships with, and they will support you in finding another job, right? And speaking of job, there's a platform called LinkedIn, right? And that's all about building relationships, right? You can connect with colleagues, you can connect with individuals at different companies, different organizations, right? So it allows you to build, and in order of building, that will help you to build your influence, right? So if you have 1,000 contacts, that's 1,000 relationships, right? If you have 10,000 contacts, that's 10,000 relationships, right? And the more you cultivate that relationship, the more you're going to get out of that relationship, right? Okay, let's continue to the next slide, please. So, our final thoughts today. So, here at Lishawn's Consulting, we fully understand the art of influence and leadership, and we're able to share our knowledge and know how with our clients and continuously expanding audience. So, we believe that there building an influence is an art, right? It takes work, it takes commitment, it takes energy, and it's really about, you know, interacting with individuals. It's about you know, checking, you know, what people are saying and interacting on, you know, the different social media platforms. You have to be relatable, and so, you know, it takes work, right? And if you are a great leader, you know, you can influence your community, you can influence others in whatever sphere that you're working in. All right. And so that's our final thoughts on building, you know, uh, the art of influence, and how you can take a lot of the tips and the information shared today and build your audience. All right.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, LaShawn. That was some eye-opening information. I think I just totally didn't have any clue. Like I didn't read your slides. I like to let
Hmm.
them like surprise me in the moment. Plus, I don't
Hmm.
like to assume by reading too much information. But I
Yeah.
realized I was like, I really didn't think about social media. I didn't realize we were going down the social media route. But it's just so perfect and divine. Definitely for me, and I hope for the rest of you out there in our Juneteenth family community. Um, that struggle to engage on a regular basis and don't necessarily have so there are a lot of plans out there. There are the
Hmm.
cookie cutter kind of like funnels that you can go through. But if you're a person who kind of struggles with engaging with people, like I'm super personable, but
Yeah.
engaging with people still creates a level of anxiety for me sometimes. And that's what happens when I sit down to create posts and come up with content. So
Yeah.
just actually allowing myself to frame it from a leadership
Hmm.
point of view versus being like this wanting likes, wanting to gain not,
Hmm.
and it's not about the likes, but wanting the likes to then grow into the customers and then the customers growing into you being your purpose. Like
Yeah.
all of that being a part of one thing, allowing it to be able to be seen from a whole different scope than what I normally hear.
And one of the things, you know, that COVID did for a lot of influencers, because, you know, they were, you know, for me, for example, prior to COVID, I didn't really have a digital presence because I really didn't need one, right?
Mm.
You know, I would go to events, I would share my information, my contacts, emails. You know, I had a you know, a MailChimp contact list. So, you know, like I kept connected with individuals, right? Um, but as a result of COVID, we weren't having those in-person events, you
Mm.
know, every month and everywhere. And, you know, so it became a challenge,
Yeah.
right?
Cause
And
you
so,
pivot, huh?
yeah, so our strategy right away, I think we probably spent like a month of wow, this is when is the next in-person event? And after that, it was like, okay, now we need to, you know, build our digital brand.
Mm-hmm.
We created a Twitter account. We created a Facebook account. I didn't have a Facebook account, so you know, for
Wow.
most people,
Wow.
Facebook is like, and
Wow.
it was really fun because of my network and my networking prior to Facebook. When
Mm.
I joined Facebook, I had so many friend requests.
That's
So it was
beautiful.
like, you know, I had like thousands of friend requests. I was like, I didn't know all these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was because a lot of the networking I was doing before, you know, when you're an influencer, people see, you know, as soon as you join you know, a social media channel, and then
So
they're like, yes, I need to follow, right?
so question for you that comes up for me. So what does that now look like? So I know that you know you shared the different ways that you can leverage yourself social media wise, but
Mhm.
being that you were a person that was so used to networking in person, outside of like LinkedIn, I know you mentioned the email contacts, like
Mhm,
using your contact list as
mhm.
a form of networking. But what does it look like networking with like other people who do what you do, and what is that like outside of those things? What is it looking like, and how does that feel?
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, I think with COVID, everyone thought I would be, like, really, uh, depressed and, like, not myself because for me, I usually I'm not a home person, right? So prior to COVID, you know, I wasn't at home. If I was at home, my mom would be like, "Are you feeling okay? Is this what's happening? Why are you here?" It's like not the norm, right? But for me, when COVID happened, I kind of realized it was health and
Mhm,
safety. And
mhm,
so all I did was really internalize that this is gonna be my new space. I have to make my home my interaction, and having, Zoom meetings through, teaching,
mhm.
that kept me going because I would have my students, pretty
Wow.
regular, interacting with them. My niece, uh, came over because her parents were first responders, so it was like, I
Mhm.
had a little happy family here,
Oh,
working from home, so I understand, the challenges, having children, you
yeah.
know, during COVID and working from home with children,
Mhm.
right? So, you know, that empathy that I talked about in
Yeah.
terms of being an influencer, it occurred with me as well, because then I understood that my staff who were now working virtually,
Mhm.
had their children, in the background. And if they were working on something in the, dinner time at the same time, you can't have like, you know, a,
Yeah.
a professional conversation at that time, right? It's like everybody's going to bed, everyone's eating dinner and going to bed. That's it, right? Or even breakfast and lunchtime, understanding that those times are carved in with children.
Yeah.
And so we would work around that, so
Beautiful.
that was,
So it
very.
was so in other words, still kind of networking and doing the same things, but just inside. Because I'm
Yeah,
so instead of
doing it
like
inside.
possibly where you might have been going to the niece's house and helping out over there, if they needed to do
Exactly.
something, she came to you. And I love that you had the tenacity to pivot,
Yeah.
because that's really what I hear in the underlying lining of the conversation around COVID the most is
Mhm.
the folks that were able to pivot the
Yeah,
most solid in the most solid way without falling over. They're the ones that were able to gain some traction and really be able to turn around and teach the ones of us who didn't. So, and I can't say the ones of us who didn't, I just didn't in certain areas, but
mhm.
this being here right here with you today actually came out of COVID for me. And this was
Right.
something that, if I'm sharing that, the anxiety, this is part of actually healing that for me. So thank you for being a part of that stretch and grow for me, and that pivot for me, and bringing us the art of influence, and offering this amazing scope of how to broaden it and not like
Yeah.
keep it in a box, and how to actually even the important one of the things that I'm very passionate about is being right where we are,
Mhm.
because we're taught to look for the future and to want these things that are ahead. And
Mhm.
it doesn't help if you're an impatient person.
Right.
So, learning to practice being in the moment and being okay with just where you are, and learning to provide yourself with everything that you need. So, sort of like how you said, okay, well, this is my new world. Let me create just what I
Yeah.
need right here in my space. It doesn't have to be out there. And I think that that's a major thing for us to really understand and know that it's good for us. It's a part of self-care to me as well.
Yeah.
Um
Absolutely.
so so yeah, so it's like the art of influence on self.
Yeah. I think if you wanna be influential, you actually have to have moments of self-care because you can't be all things to everybody all the time.
That's true.
So, even within, you know being an entrepreneur and having all these different responsibilities, I have to be able to carve in time for myself and for my family. And, you know, having long days, it's normal for an entrepreneur, right? But if you don't fill some of those long days with like a day out, a night out, you will be overwhelmed all
Yeah,
the time.
you can definitely get lost.
And
Yeah.
self-care is definitely something that we've all experienced as a result of COVID, because it kind of put us in a space where we're independent and self, you know,
Mhm.
people who, worked for themselves, really had this self moment, right? They weren't in the office setting where, they can find people to do different things for them. Now you're kind of
Mhm.
accountable for those things independently. And so if your staff is not available at that time, you have to do it, right?
Yes.
So
So, Lishawn, could you provide us with your contact details? Did you have a contact? Was there a
yeah,
contact slide there?
yeah. The first slide had my contact details.
Medi, can you bring up the first one for us? So, community, this is how you would reach
The
Lishawn if
first
you'd
slide.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
here
if
we
you'd
go.
like to find out more information about the art of influence or hire her for consulting,
Yeah.
please do take a screenshot, write the information down. We will also drop it in the chat box later on. It'll be on the different social media pages. And yeah, anything else you'd like to say today, LaShawn, before we exit out?
I mean, there's always something in final thought to share. It's like, when you're trying to influence um individuals, it doesn't happen overnight, right? It's like with any kind of piece of legislation or policy that comes up, it takes time. Sometimes it has to be refined. Like the first time you get it, it's a draft. You have to tweak it a little bit more. You have to really consider how the offense is gonna, take it in, and so be able to address it on their end. So any questions that they may have, want to be able to it's like debating. So my niece started this debate team in her school, and I was like, yeah, you're going to be really great at this, because it's all about getting your point across so that people understand that what you're doing is purposeful, that is important, right? And if you can sell that to someone, you can influence their decision, right? And so as entrepreneurs, we're influencing individuals all the time, right? We're letting people know how great our service is, how great our product is.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not successful, then we're out of a job, right? So, as an entrepreneur, you are your business, right? So you have to be able to understand the art of influence and understand how to relate to the people that you're serving and your clients. And fortunately for me, when I started my consulting company, my clients were calling me, right? So it wasn't that I left government deciding that I wanted to have a consulting company, but people were reaching out saying,
Mm-hmm.
LaShawn, we understand, your expertise in this area. We have a board and they need help. Like, we're not looking for staff, but we're looking
Love it.
for a consultant to just help our board understand their fiduciary duties, help, fundraise for this particular project that we're working on,
I
help
love it.
with, contract management in this, contract. So navigating government is challenge at all levels, right? So, because of my influence in government, it became, a career, a consulting calling.
I love it. I was going to say, so what I actually heard is that you didn't find your purpose found you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. I love that. Many blessings. Well, I look forward. Hopefully you'll come back and join us again because
yeah.
you're like a wealth of knowledge and I'm sure that there's something else that you would have to offer us just through all your experience and your background and your history. I'm sure that you have more to teach us than just the art of influence. Like so many things were just like piquing my interest
Mhm,
of your background.
mhm.
Um, and thank you. I look forward to continuing this connection relationship between you and the Juneteenth family.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I really support the cause and, what Juneteenth is all about, and celebrating us. We need every opportunity that we can to celebrate our accomplishments, all the work that we're doing, and the influence that we're continuing to build. So everyone continue to build your influence.
I love that. Well, thank you, community, for joining us today for another Lunch and Learn, learning so much, so much, just so much, so much, so much. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. Before I exit out, or after I exit out, rather, we will be playing our Juneteenth vendors commercial again. Please, please, please keep in mind that we are going to have an amazing event. Please register, come out, be a vendor, come out, just come and have a great time. Bring your family. We'll be celebrating Father's Day together in the park, out in Prospect Park, and looking forward to an amazing celebration of us. Thanks again, Lishawn. Bye, family. Bye.